And here we are. There's always a little bit of a delay with Instagram. I always say to people that Instagram doesn't play nice with StreamYard just yet. So we are live. I am Helen Harwood Snell, providing word alchemy for your business growth through communication intelligence and stories. And each week I'd like to bring to you a new guest. We listen to their story, we learn from them, and then I develop a story at the end of the broadcast that they can use in their business. So if you're tuning in live, please say hello. If you're watching the replay, let me know that you're watching the replay. And I would like to introduce you to a friend I have come to know just in the last few months, but I feel really close to Denise Stegall. Am I saying that correctly? Yes.
Yes.
Denise is a woman after my heart. She is drawing upon her own experience to help women who are aging to do so gracefully, with nutrition and lifestyle, happiness, and all of the things that matter to us as we are growing older. So Denise, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me today, Helen. Nice to see you.
Yeah. We met through FemCity, and I do want to share that if anybody is curious about that fabulous global women's organization, you can reach out to either Denise or myself and talk to us about that. They have local chapters as well as online global platforms. So Denise, I want to know how you became an expert in longevity and kind of what your journey was to get there.
The journey has been long. So the journey
And
for me,
hopefully longer.
I am planning, I'm going to hit that 100 for sure. That's my goal. And
That's
I'm
it.
going to do it gracefully in my own way, and live the life that I want to live. So how did this all happen? So my college degree actually is hotel restaurant business management with a focus in nutrition. So I have actually been feeding people since college and cooking. I started cooking when I was 11. And what I realized at a very early on was that food changed your life. It wasn't just about, throwing a meal together, grabbing something on the quick because you were hungry, you had hunger pains. That food truly was nutrition, and nutrition was the answer to so many questions. If you're tired and you've been eating crappy, eat better. If you eat nutritious food, oh, look at that, you sleep better, you feel better. And it was just amazing when I realized that when I was in college, that like the connection, because until then, when you're a kid, yeah, you just ate what was put in front of you. So that's kind of where my love of food kind of started, where I started to connect food and the nutrition piece and how that actually is going to make people feel better. But it honestly wasn't until I started to have perimenopausal symptoms at age 37, which is pretty early. Most people don't
Yeah.
experience those until they're in their 40s, like mid 40s. So I was early. Yay. Yay for me. And with that, of course, came weight gain. And I never in my life had to lose weight before. I was an athlete in high school and college. I was a dancer all through school. So this learning how to lose weight thing was new. And so what I did, just like pretty much everybody else, I went to Dr. Google and typed in, how do I lose weight? And I got all of these different diets and crazy ideas. So I thought, okay, well, let me try this one. And I must have tried, I don't even know how many diets. And some of them worked for a short period of time. I lost the weight, but nothing actually stuck because it was short term. Diet was just to lose the weight, to feel better, to fit into a dress, whatever that short term goal was.
Right, but not a lifestyle change.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
again, my background was nutrition. So I was eating pretty well. But again, I'd never needed to lose weight because I was always active and until then, my metabolism was still kind of revved, but as that was slowing, so all of these things kind of happened all at the same time. Like I'm gaining weight, I feel tired. What is this? All of these crazy symptoms. And of course, none of the doctors had any answers for me because it was atypical of a 37-year-old woman to be experiencing all of the symptoms that I was. So I realized at one point after being on another diet and not losing the weight, and I needed to lose 10 pounds. That was my challenge was 10 pounds. I had friends who were trying to lose 20 and 30 and 50. And I thought to myself, if I'm struggling with 10, no wonder why they're struggling with 50. So I stepped back and really had to reevaluate what I was doing, what I was reading online, and decided that most of the stuff that I was reading about diets, there was a truth to some of them, or there was some truth to all of them. Many
Mm.
of them did focus on eating real food, but taking full food groups out or cutting your calories back to a point where your body thought you were starving it. So instead of losing fat, you were gaining fat. So all of these diets, even though when I was younger may have worked, or when we're younger, things like that work, as you get older, they just don't work anymore.
And
So
and I'm curious in relation to that, Denise, can you tell me if the way you eat now, for example, is different than how you were trained in nutrition in college? Because I know even here in Canada, so you're in the United States, just for my audience's information, we went by the Canada Food Guide for many, many years, and it was really heavily influenced by the industry. So the guidelines that were set out were actually not really that healthy, and it
correct.
became healthier probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm just curious if anything you learned in college has kind of changed or progressed through any kind of similar transition like that.
Absolutely. We've gone through iterations of the same thing.
Okay.
Now I think the one that they use is called My Plate. But again, you're right. The industry, the dairy industry, the meat industry was very heavily involved with those guidelines in creating those guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very true. I eat very differently now than I did back in the day. Even 10 years ago, I really made a huge transition to a more plant forward diet. Now, I'm not vegetarian, I'm not vegan completely, any of those. Again, I don't believe that we have to take full food groups out of our diet. So, what I do is I eat more plant based foods, but I still have my piece of chicken here and there and fish because we know fish with the omega 3s is really great for brain health. And when we're thinking about longevity, brain health is really, really important. So it's truly become more plant forward. I don't take dairy out of my diet, but I don't really make that part of my daily meal. Maybe I'll have a piece of cheese here or, some whipped cream in my coffee, but really limited as opposed to the guidelines that have the glass of milk there and a big piece of
Yes.
meat. I think in the U.S. what we really grew up with was you have this big piece of meat, you have this big piece of protein, and then the side dishes.
Yes.
Instead, now it's more the side dishes are the main meal, and the animal protein is a small portion of that.
Right. And you found that that worked for you, Denise, for your weight loss. And have you found um, that program in its base works for all of your clients? Or do you find that different people have different needs for supporting their body in the way that it needs to be supported?
Yes, yes and no. So this does work for pretty much everybody, but everybody's different. So sometimes people need a little bit more animal protein, some people less. I'm 5 foot tall. I don't need a ton of protein unless I'm working out on a regular basis, like more than
Right.
regular. Most people weight lift a couple of days a week, and that's normal for them. If I up that to 3 times a week or 4 times a week, then yes, I need more protein. And so it depends on the lifestyle, that how active people are.
Okay.
Then we change things, just kind of according to what's going on in a person's life.
So
Changing this into a lifestyle, though, is the goal. If we can change our eating habits and our nutrition habits, we can really make that lifestyle, that we can really extend our lifestyle, our life, and be healthy, happy through this decade and the next few decades.
yeah, so I'm glad that you transitioned into that because I do want to kind of move from that, menopausal weight gain, kind of finding a new way forward with your diet, but then also you have a specialty in longevity, and so I want to hear more about that in terms of beyond diet. Do you work with people in that beyond diet as well, as far as exercise and mind health and all of those things that actually help with that whole longevity um, process, I was going to say, but gift, maybe that longevity gift.
I like it as a gift. Yes, I do. So when I realized that this change, or when I started to change my diet and realized that this plant forward concept really made a lot of sense, I did a lot of research and actually went back to kind of to some old school thoughts of just eating real food. So the basis is eat real food, make good decisions, and then be accountable to those decisions. So what we do in the make good decisions phase of working with my clients, it's about planning and organizing. It's about mindset. Mindset is a huge part of nutrition. We have to get over the fact that, oh my God, if I change my diet, I won't be able to eat my favorite foods ever again. Well, we can eat them. My favorite two foods are pizza and donuts. Okay, they're not really plant-based, but I eat them on
Okay.
occasion.
Yeah.
So it's that mindset change about around food, but also it's the mindset change about what is it that we want? How do we want to live? What does that future look like? Like, what do we want our long-term health to look like? Do we want to be playing with our grandkids and great grandkids when we're in our 70s? Or do we want to be that grandma that just kind of sits there, in the rocking chair, waving to the kids? I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but I want to be the one playing.
Oh yeah. I know I went through that several years ago now. I'm trying to think back how long. It was probably 10-ish, maybe
Mhm.
even more. I have trouble with both of my knees from playing sports when I was younger. I've had surgeries and all sorts of things. And I was having a lot of trouble walking up and down my stairs from inflammation in my knees. And I thought, oh, I need to do something about this. And it's funny when you make one change, and you were talking about mindset. That's why I wanted to bring this up. I decided to start going to a gym where my daughter was attending. And then when you get into that culture,
Mhm.
you don't want to eat a pizza before you go work out,
Oh
right? Because it
no.
like it just feels terrible. You want to get a good night's sleep. Like there's so many things that actually come into play, and often it's just one step that you take that then leads to more and more things. And so you're talking about weightlifting. I go to a CrossFit gym about 3 times a week,
Mhm.
which is usually a combination of weightlifting and cardio,
Mhm.
and my knees are in better shape than they have been for years. Well, I mean, it took years to get here, obviously, but way better than they were 10 years ago. And it
Right, and
it
I'm
was just
sure part of
just
it's weight loss, it's working out, it's the muscles. You've strengthened the muscles around the knees.
mm,
Nutritionally, you're giving your body what it needs,
yeah.
and it's that in itself takes away inflammation. And most people don't realize that most of the aches and pains that we have is due to inflammation, internal inflammation that never goes away because we keep eating the same things we did 5 years ago, 10 years ago. All of these things that have these processed foods that have additives and preservatives and things that your body basically does not recognize. If it doesn't
Hmm.
recognize something that you're eating, it thinks it's an invader and it attacks it. When it attacks it, what happens? Inflammation.
Yes. Yes. So I'm curious to learn more about that idea of your body not recognizing food, and I'd love to get into the question of people who think they're eating healthy when they're not. Do you have some advice for people around things that are, like you mentioned, taking out complete food groups, people who maybe want to eat, like paleo is one that comes to mind, where you're, cutting out all of the carbs. And I'm a big vegetable eater as well. And I can't imagine not having my salads and my grilled vegetables and all of the things. So I'd love for you to share if you've got a couple of tips for people on maybe some myths around healthy eating that aren't so healthy.
I think one of the things, it's funny. So, like a diet with a little d, diet, is the
Yes.
food that you eat. Diets with the big D is your paleo, your keto, your those diets that people are following.
Yes.
And again, aspects of them are good. If you're eating vegetables, if when you're eating meat, if you're eating grass fed, if you're eating organic, all of those things are good. The challenge that we have when we think we're eating healthy, again, one, if we're taking full food groups out, your body needs carbs, your brain needs carbs. That's what it functions optimally on. If you're not giving your body carbs, your body's not working the way it's meant to work. Now, I'm sure the keto people will be arguing with me because they have their research. And of course, everybody has their bits and pieces of research. But when you go back to the basics, back to when eating was not such a big deal, we ate vegetables and fruits, we ate our whole grains, we ate protein occasionally. These are
Mm-hmm.
the foods that our body recognizes. And
Yes.
all of these additives, our body just doesn't have any idea what they are. And so either one, there's the inflammation, they have no nutrition. And so you're feeding your body with stuff it can't use. And so really just kind of, you end up just eliminating it out.
Yes.
Um, so my recommendation is always go back to the basics and eat real food. Go for those whole foods as close to the way nature made them as possible.
Yes.
I like to follow the lifestyle medicine concept. They're 100% plant based, but I like to follow them because they really show you how to eat more vegetables and plant based foods, how to incorporate them into a healthy diet. So again, it's based in real foods, the things that we know are good for us. No one has ever looked at a piece of pizza and said, "Oh yeah, this is healthy," even if you put a piece of broccoli on
Absolutely. Absolutely.
it. You're getting a little bit of something from that broccoli, maybe. Um, but
That's great.
that piece of pizza, this is where I always say, it's an 80 kind of world. If you're eating real food, whole foods that are full of the nutrition, the macronutrients, the micronutrients that your body needs to actually work, then you're doing a really good job. And then 20% of the time, have a slice of pizza. If it's your birthday, have a piece of cake. Friday night,
Mm-hmm.
date night, have a glass of wine. And those things, that's kind of that enhancement in life. We don't want to look at, our diet and our life where it's always restriction, restriction, restriction. Because as soon as we say we can't have something, we want it. And
Absolutely.
it's absolutely, it's part mindset, but it really is. It's something that all of a sudden we can't think, about anything else but that piece of chocolate that we're not supposed to have because it's not healthy.
Yep. Yep. And
So
so you work with clients, is it one-on-one coaching, group coaching? How does that work? And I know you also have a book for people who
I
are
do.
do-it-yourselfers. So tell me a little bit more about that.
I do. So I do work with people in a group setting, and I also work with people one on one. Just depends on the person, and everything actually is based in the foundations that I have written in this book, international bestseller, A Healthy Living, Happy Life, and that's where I go through the concepts of eating real food, what that entails. I talk a little bit about the different diets with the big D. I talk about a healthy continuum, or something I like to call traffic light, LITE, bites. And it's really an easy way for people to look at food and say, oh, okay, green apple, it's green, that's a green light food. Piece of chicken, okay, it's still healthy enough, it's got stuff that I need. We won't eat as much of that. And then there's that big piece of cake over there, definitely red light food. Not that it's completely off limits, but it's, hold on, let's think about this. What did I eat the rest of the day? Or, as I like to say, if you want that piece of cake, let's plan that pleasure food. And think about it. If it's, you're going on a date on Friday night, you're going to have that piece of cake, plan for it. This way, when you have it, you enjoy it guilt-free, because we never want to have guilt in our life. There's no place for guilt in longevity. Absolutely no place for guilt. um, so that's one of the things I think that the inside the book that really helps people to be able to do it themselves, or at least that the food part, is to really look at the traffic light bites piece, and to be able to say, okay, when I go to the supermarket, I can figure out what I should be buying.
Yes. So I want to ask you, just, with those little terms like, traffic light bites and some of the other things that you said, I can tell that you live life a little bit with a sense of humor and some just joy. So I would love for you to share with the audience who you are outside of your work. What else lights you up, Denise?
Well, funny, one of the things that I absolutely love to do is I love to cook. I know that's part of my job, but I really do enjoy cooking. I read cookbooks. I know, like, that's a little weird, but I actually literally flip through them. So that's one thing I like to do. I love being outside. I absolutely love to travel, and if I can be outside while I'm traveling, even better. Probably one of my favorite places in the world is actually my house here in Minnesota. It looks like a ski lodge. I look out on trees, so I feel like I live in the middle of nature. This is a perfect time of year to be here and living in nature. Get back to me in February. I may have be telling you a little bit of a different story.
That's awesome. And I would also love you to share, because this is a fun thing that I usually ask um, people who are working with me if they're developing a biography. What experience did you have prior to the work that you're doing now that you brought into this present work? We always bring skills forward with it, so I'm curious to know, before you started in this particular area,
Mhm.
although you've been involved in nutrition, I guess, your whole life, right from college. But things in maybe the hotel, restaurant management, anything like that, skills that you pull into the work that you do now.
I think everything I've done, every job I've had, I've pulled something from. So when I worked in hotels, I worked in the catering department. And one of the things that was really fun was I worked with there was a new head chef there, and I worked with him to redo all of the menus that we were serving at the restaurant there. So menu creation, that was one piece that I've absolutely brought in to my business.
For
Um,
sure.
when I was a corporate meeting planner. So from there at the hotel, one of my best clients was a meeting planning company. And they actually recruited me away from that business to actually work for the meeting planning company. And so
Okay.
that was a huge, huge piece of what I do personally and professionally is plan. I have something that I call the 3 Ps. And this is when people are starting with me, the 3 Ps. We need to start planning, we need to prioritize, and then we need to prepare. So that's something that I learned working with the meeting planning company, because if just having a plan is great, but if you haven't prioritized the steps, and you're not quite mentally prepared to make changes, say in your nutrition, having that plan just kind of falls apart. So
Yes.
the three P's definitely came from my career as a corporate meeting planner.
Amazing. I love that. And so in that preparedness and prioritizing there that you're just talking about, I want to kind of go full circle back to um, the longevity piece.
Mhm.
So you do focus on nutrition, but you also focus on other things like mindset. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you incorporate that into your work and how that plays a big role in longevity for people? And if there's other things besides mindset that I'm missing that
Mhm.
you also incorporate?
Absolutely. So the mindset piece, like I mentioned, is really important. What I do with my clients is we actually go through a program called Positive Intelligence. And it's a 6-week program. So this is connected to what I am doing with my clients. So it's part of my program is this 6-week Positive Intelligence program that helps people recognize their saboteurs. What's holding them back? What's keeping them from living the life that they want or making the decisions that they keep making over and over again? And once they understand these saboteurs, and there's one main saboteur, the judge, we all know him, right? Or her. And then these sub saboteurs, for example, people who play the victim all the time, or someone who is really, hard about the rules. It's the rules, it's the rules, it's the rules, and that's it. These are actually saboteurs that can get in the way of our progress in our professional and personal life. And so that is
Mm-hmm.
a big part of the mindset. And with the program, we have a daily an app that we use every day to keep that mindfulness piece right in front of us, because we can say, oh yes, I'm practicing mindfulness, and then the day goes by and it's 6:30 and you'll go, oh yeah, I forgot about that mindfulness practice.
Yes.
Where this is guided. So 3 times a day I get a little message on my phone that says, okay, it's time to stop and do your positive intelligence piece. Are you, let's be mindful for 2 minutes. And that really helps people to be able to reset. With the guidance, they can reset, and they start to automatically recognize, oh, I need a reset. I need to
Yes.
step back and be more mindful about whatever it is, whether it's, I'm about to eat something that I don't really want to eat, or, I need to step away from my desk because I've been sitting here for 4.5 hours. Those kinds of things.
Yes.
So mindfulness is
Absolutely.
such a big piece of it.
Yeah.
But also, of course, I talk about, movement. I don't like to talk about exercise because nobody really likes to exercise, but we like to move, right? We like to have
Yes.
fun. So we talk about that, how are we going to incorporate that into our longevity? I know so many people nowadays playing pickleball, and these are
Yes.
people, a lot of them are people who didn't really do a lot of exercise. They would say, oh, well, I walk, for 20 minutes every day, which is a start. But if you want to live that longer, healthier life, you need to do more than that. And so this
Yes.
is something that we talk about. We talk about connecting with one another. That's such an important piece. It's part of it is mindset, but part of it is fulfillment. Connecting with other people, talking with other people. How about, getting a hug from someone? These are such important pieces of longevity, lifestyle, purpose, and fulfillment. So that longevity, we want to live healthier, happier as long as we can, but we also want to feel fulfilled and that we're making a difference in other people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've read some stats on that before that say I want to get this right, but I think married men tend to live longer. But I'm not sure if it's the same for women. I think women more successfully can find,
True.
companionship with
Mhm.
friends and things like that. Um, but there's all sorts of stats about,
Yeah.
the kind of the level of joy that you can have in your life if you have a partner.
Mhm.
If you're, engaged in community volunteer work, all
Yeah.
sorts of things like that. So I love that you touch on all of those things because, lifestyle and healthy aging, healthy living is so much more than just nutrition. So I love that you have kind of brought that all together in one package. We are almost at the end of time because I could listen to you talk about this stuff. Like I've got all sorts of questions I was jotting down, and we're not even going to be able to talk about them. So you and I will have to have a follow-up conversation again, I'm sure. But I
Something.
want to ask you if you could just share something that's happened to you recently in your life. What I like to do at the end of all of these shows is just show the audience how easy it is to bring storytelling into your business. And so if you share a little story with me, Denise, about something that happened to you recently, I will make it into a story that you can use in your business.
The one that comes to mind, I've been talking about a few times. I was recently traveling, and while we were out traveling, we decided to go for a run. And we were on a trail that was full of tree roots. And I kept saying to myself, don't trip over the tree root, don't trip over the tree root. So, of course, what happened? I tripped over the tree root. I broke, I broke my wrist.
Oh,
That was
no.
about it. I broke a bone in my wrist. But more importantly, I kind of felt like really stupid. I'm like, oh my gosh, really? But then I had to get up and finish my run because I was still 2 miles away from the car,
Oh, wow.
and so that was something that happened. And then realized the next day, am I going to go back and do the same thing? Because we were going to go back the next day and go for another run. And I realized that, yes, I was going to do it. Now, I could have said, no, you know what? I kind of screwed that up yesterday. Let's do something else. But I decided to go back the next day and basically run the same trail.
Awesome. I'm gonna just take this quick opportunity just to wrap up here. I appreciate you hanging on for an extra minute. Um, just to say that I think a great way that you could share that story if you are, I understand you're emceeing at an event coming up very soon. People can check that out on your page.
Yes.
And if it's there or if it's a talk you're giving, you could actually share that story and just say, recently this is what happened. I went on this run. I had it in my mind that there was lots of tree roots, and I wanted to caution myself not to trip on them. And so, of course, the very thing I did was trip and fall, break my wrist. But I did go back and accomplish it again the next day with your wrist in a cast, I'm assuming, and running with a different mindset. And how I would tie that into your business is by sharing that story and then saying, as I reflected back on that, it reminded me of all of the different situations that I ran across in that one instance that I share with my clients on a regular basis. So the idea of thinking about being on a diet was like thinking of those tree roots. And because I was focusing on it, of course, I tripped on them. Um, the idea of having failed and maybe not wanting to go back and do it the next day is often what happens when we're thinking of trying to make a lifestyle change or trying to go on a diet and we're not successful. And so it was really important for me to share that story with you to let you see that it's not about getting it right every time. It's about, continuing the journey and trying again even when things don't go as planned. So I hope that's a fun thing for you, Denise, that you might be able to tie into one of your upcoming talks that you're
I love
giving,
it. Thank you.
or even if you're connecting with someone on a networking call. Storytelling is a great way to connect with our audience. There is science-backed data to show that there is a neural pathway that opens when we share stories. And if you would be open to join me for Tuesday Tales again next week, I will feature another fabulous business owner that I have run across. Please check out my links for my storytelling course, and there's a workshop I have coming up shortly. And please have a look at what Denise has got going on. Her book, if you want to hold that up again, Denise,
Yes.
is called Healthy Living, Happy Life. She's also, as I said, emceeing at an event coming up shortly, all about longevity and healthy living. And Denise, I thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Helen. I appreciate it.
See you all again soon.